Another night I spent alone. I never thought I'd ever need you. Ready?
Yep.
Drive. No matter how you feel, still get behind the wheel. The consequences never too far behind. They're always there in the back of your mind. Yeah. 301, tragedy begun. 85, now life comes undone. Never notice until it's too late. And in that instant, fade away. Never know it's gone till it says goodbye. All you have to do is open up your eyes, let your feelings through. It's all you have to give. No one needs to know. burn the candle at both ends, always searching, but it'll never end. Time keeps ticking, try to keep peace as the tears roll down my face. Never know it's gone till it says goodbye. All you have to do is open up your eyes, let your feelings through. It's all you have to give. No one needs to know everything you're feeling, every moment of your life. How did we get so far? Nothing but our innocence, guiding us to destinies unknown. I know we'll never understand how this could ever happen anyway. How could life go on the same without you? Never know it's gone till it says goodbye. All you have to do is open up your eyes, let your feelings through. It's all you have to give. No one needs to know everything you're feeling, every moment of your life. At 2 p.m. later that day, we're making plans, setting you away. Nothing special, we just say goodbye. We hang our heads, and some of us cry.
Can you hear me now? Hopefully you can hear me now. Okay, good. I had to change around my desk because my work finally got my work computer to function. So I had to switch where my regular computer was so that I could hook up my work computer. And so everything's kind of messed up and not in its right place. So thanks for helping me with that, Justice. I appreciate that. And if I keep looking to the side, it's because that's where my information is, just the slobs, you know, just making sure I'm checking everything and making sure that it's all working right. So you might see the side of my hair is looking a little thin and gray. Yes, I'm old enough to have gray hair. Gotta get that dyed. But yeah, so I was actually researching this today's episode right up until the last second because I was having such a hard time with trying to find information on Mr. Gasser. And so yeah, I was running a little bit late. But of course it gave you enough time to come in, so that's good. Yeah, you know what? I've been dealing with gray hair since I was like 24, I think it was, but it's just gotten worse now. My boyfriend says it looks like he's dating a grandma. Yeah, he's real nice. He's real sweet. Love that. So anyway, so I'm so glad that you're here. It's okay. He says it very jokingly, and I take it jokingly. He and I have that kind of relationship where we can dog on each other, and it's fine. We totally understand it. So yeah. You know, yeah, I think I'm at the point though where I'm kind of like, I think I'm just going to get, to keep it. I'm getting tired of spending so much money dyeing my hair, trying to keep it up. And then if you dye it yourself and you miss a spot, it's so noticeable sometimes. And then, sometimes if you go, or when you go to a new salon or you go to a salon, sometimes they can mess up your hair dyeing it. So I'm just kind of at the point where I'm like, maybe I'll just let it gray. If the boyfriend doesn't like it, he can hit the door, I mean, that's, he's a good guy. I don't think that would make him hit the door, but he could, if he couldn't handle it. I'm okay with, myself enough that, if he chose to leave over that, that's his prerogative. But anyway, so today, it was so good to see you on your stream today, by the way, Justice. I really enjoy your streams, and actually, you made me want to get that game. I haven't got it yet, but it looked actually kind of fun. So I was like, I wonder if I could get that, although I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to get a better computer before I download any games or do anything like that. So we shall see. But yeah, so today we are talking about Mr. John R. Gasser, and his name, actually, he usually went by Jack, it looks like. And I'm thinking that maybe on Tuesdays and Thursdays I might, if I feel up to it, jump on and do a game, where it's just nice and chill and relax and wouldn't take a lot of research like this did. But again, I've got my handy little notebook with lots and lots of notes. I ended up finding an Anne Rule book that actually had been digitized, and it's online. It's called Last Dance, Last Chance, and Other True Cases. So she actually had a section on Jack Gasser or John Gasser. So that was actually really cool because, she does a lot of research. And so most of my notes are going to come from that because she actually was able to tell me, victims' names and dates and kind of the history of what happened with him. So definitely check that book out. Like I said, it's actually online. You can actually read it online. And so it was kind of cool. I was going through each page just eating up, the things that she was able to find out about this case or about this person. So yeah, let's get started with John R. Gasser. He is actually the first recorded, at least as far as I can tell, the first recorded serial killer in Washington. So like I said, I'm going to start with Washington and branch out, after that. But we have about 41 recorded or suspected serial killers here in Washington. So I've got lots and lots of data to keep me going for a while, it seems. So Washington will be on the list for a while. The land of serial killers. So John R. Gasser was born about the year 1928, because when he first came into view in 1948, he was about 20 years old. So he was born around 1928. He was born into a family with a very strict father who is very prone to anger, and it could be said that he was violent or an authoritarian over his family, and you'll kind of see why later on. But in July of 1948, a young lady who was about 20, I think she was 20, yeah. Well, she was found in a vacant lot in Seattle. And this wasn't too far from a naval base that was nearby. She was face down in a ditch. Young, they were thinking she was around her 20s. She was naked except for a covering of a sweater jacket. And she was found by a gentleman who was on his way to a local bus stop. He had gone through the vacant lots to kind of cut through and cut his time going to it. So while he was going through, he saw the body lying there in the ditch, and he had to run to a nearby house so that he could get the phone and actually call the police. At that time in 1948, we didn't have 911, so he actually had to call the police station, and there was one guy on, yeah, I know. Can you imagine like the kind of psychological damage that would do to you if you found someone like that? I cannot even grasp how hard that would be. Definitely would need to see someone to talk about it, of course. But yeah, he had to run to a nearby house, get their phone, and call the police station. And it was one guy at the time. It's kind of funny. They didn't have a switchboard, like they do now, where it's not really a switchboard. It's digital, but there was one guy who would field all the calls that would come into the police station, and then he would dispatch them out to wherever the call was for. And so he got the call, he dispatched the officers. Patrol officers were the first ones to come in. They said that as soon as they saw the body, they knew that she was deceased, because just because the way she was looking, and she was face down in some water. So they figured that even if she hadn't been dead by the time she hit that she would have been, because she would have drowned in the water. So the King County coroner pronounced her dead there at the scene. It said that he had done, what did I read? Because John Brill was the coroner at that time, and he wrote down in a notebook every single autopsy that he did, and it says that by the end of his career, I think it said it's something like 40,000 autopsies by the end of his career. That to me has to say something too. I mean, I can't imagine also being a coroner who had to time and time again see these people in these vulnerable states, them having to tell their story through forensics, and I mean, just sad. I can't imagine being a coroner and having to see that, time and time again, and experiencing that and seeing the horrors that humans can do to each other, just like with detectives or police that have to check out the scene and gather evidence. It's got to take a toll on your mind. They have to really put themselves in a space to be able to see this kind of stuff, and just kind of put it to the side and say, I'm here for the victim, I'm here to tell their story, and I'm here to find out what happened to them. Amazing people in my book. So the detectives at the time, they didn't have a forensic team. like we have now, CSIs and all that kind of stuff. So the detectives, the partners, actually, it said in the book that they took off their jackets because at that time, detectives and all of them still wore the fedoras and the, suit jackets and all that. So they took off their hats and they took off their jackets, and they dug another ditch nearby where she was so that they could drain the water from around her before having to move her, which I thought was actually kind of amazing that they thought about that, so that they could gather any of the evidence that remained behind. And at that point, they realized that she had been strangled. It amazed me that, because you think, back then they were just kind of dunces, who didn't know anything about evidence gathering, but they really did. And these guys were smart, they thought logically about things. So I thought that was really cool. I know strangling seems to be like the favorite when it comes to killers who target young women. I mean, and if you think about it, it's probably the most at hand thing. We'll never get rid of murder. Never. You could ban every gun in the world. We could ban every gun in the world. We could get rid of knives. We could get rid of any sort of weapons, but evil will always find a way. And so what are you going to do? Chop everybody's hands off so that they can't strangle people? Well, then they'll use their feet somehow. I don't know. But they'll pick up rocks. They'll do whatever. So, but strangling seems to be the preferred way. It's the way that I see it. But yeah, they did find that she had some darkness around her neck. So they figured, now when they found the body, it was badly beaten. She had cuts across her chest and deep cuts across her breasts. And then she also had a very deep wound that went from her genitals up around her belly button and back down. So, I mean, if you can imagine, this is a sick guy. Sick. And they didn't know whether or not he had done it before or after she was dead. So, just to think that somebody could do that, whether she's alive or dead. Oh my gosh! Hi, Phil! Oh my gosh, you guys! Hello! Hi, Phil. Are you here to hear about my gross and grotesque murder? Oh, I'm so glad that you guys are here. Hi. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Phil That Remains. Phil is the lead singer of All That Remains, and I've been going on his channel for a couple of months now. He's a really great guy to follow, a really just cool, chill guy who loves his fans like no matter what. So hi, Sarah. Yeah. So I am so excited that you guys are here. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm doing great. I'm so excited that you're here. Oh, you're making me blush. Okay. Now you can see the girl who's been hitting on you all this time, Phil. Yeah, it's really cool. I enjoy talking to him. So, thanks for the follow, Actual. We were right in the middle of talking about John Russell Gasser, who is a serial killer from Washington. We have 41. Yeah. all of these followers. Oh, I'm so excited. So anyway, yeah. Oh, Phil, that means so much to me. Thank you so much. But yeah, gosh, I only needed like 13 more to get to 50, so I might actually get there tonight. Oh, how exciting. Yeah. So Washington has 41 serial killers documented or suspected. So just oh my gosh. Okay. So just to let you guys know about what we were talking about, thank you so much for the guys that are following, everybody that's following right now. I am so excited to see this. I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me that you guys are following me and that you're here to listen about this. I'm just like, wow, I'm just so excited. I almost am there. Okay, so we were talking about I love true crime. That's one of my kind of weirdness. I believe he was in Shadows Fall. Justice, Phil, if you're still here, I think that was aimed at you. Thank you, Sarah. Oh, I so appreciate that. Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much, you guys. I really do appreciate that. It's just, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. It's a good feeling. Phil, you are so good to your followers. You're so good to the people that are fans of yours. I really do appreciate everything that you do to kind of keep your fans engaged and make them feel like there's someone to you. So that's just awesome. I really do appreciate that. Oh, they deleted your link. Oh, that shouldn't have been deleted. Let's see if I can undelete that. I don't know if I can. Nope, I can't. But, yeah, I really do appreciate it, Phil. So this is awesome. I'm so excited all you guys are here. I'm just wonderful. Oh, thank you, Actual. Oh, that's weird. It showed up as a link, but it says she went to local punk, ska, hardcore, and metal shows from 98 to 05. So it sounds like she knows who you are, Phil. So yeah, I mean, Justice, if you're looking for a cool stream to watch, PhilThatRemains is on Twitch, and he does it twice a day, 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. 8 p.m., right, Phil? Eastern Standard Time. So that's your time frame, Justice. So you should be able to catch him, no problem. So, so yeah. So anyway, on with my story. I think we're through with the follows for now, which I'm so excited. So we were talking about only 6 p.m. on Wednesdays. Okay. So we were talking about yep, Justice Pirate. Yep, she does Twitch sings. She has a beautiful voice, absolutely beautiful personality, and totally one of the prettiest girls on Twitch sings that I've seen, and got a great personality. So I totally love catching her on her streams, and she also does games as well. So oh my gosh, they don't have any All That Remains on Twitch sings though, Durin. Unfortunately, they don't. I checked because I wanted to try my hand at like 2 weeks or whatever, but to no avail. They don't have it yet. Hopefully they will, though. All right, back in our time machine, everybody. We are headed back to July 10th of 1948 here in Seattle. A young woman has been found in a ditch, face down in some water. She's naked and she's covered with a sweater. When they get her into autopsy, they find that she has deep cuts across her chest and in her genital area. She's been raped. Really just sad. sad. So they're trying to figure out who this young lady is. But on the way to the coroner's office, the detectives find out that there is a stolen car that's been found nearby that had a lot of blood in it. And so they're like, oh, this must be our car. This must be something connected to the murder because it wasn't found too far off. So they took and they typed the blood because, of course, back then there was no DNA. So they get it, bring the car in, they find out that it was stolen and that a doctor had reported it stolen the night before. And so they thought, hey, this is a good break. And it was actually a really good break that they found that car and were able to get the fingerprints that they were able to get and the blood. So in the postmortem, the female was in her late 20s, or her early 20s, I'm sorry. She had red hair. There was horizontal slashes, like I said, on her breasts and a deep cut from her genitals, which I just can't imagine. Oh, I can't imagine how anybody could actually do that to another person. It's just mind-boggling to me. And they don't know. They didn't know up until the autopsy whether or not it was done pre or post-mortem. Luckily, it was post-mortem. So she wasn't alive when that happened. So, I mean, thank God for small blessings, maybe. Let's see. Sorry, I'm losing my place. So the weapon, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. I mean, she probably did experience the rape. They said they didn't know whether or not that happened before she was killed or not, but you know, I mean, that doesn't really matter. It's still so horrible. But the weapon that had cut her was a broken beer bottle that had been found nearby, and she was strangled with her own bra. Yes, Amanda, this is true. This is an actual true story. So they picked up the semen that was left on her, but of course there's no DNA in 1948. So they thought maybe they could type it to see if they found, the blood. They could type, match it up on there, but to no avail. Yeah, it is really horrible. I guess I should say trigger warning. This is a true crime series, so we are going to be talking about pretty graphic stuff. I don't want to go into too many details about what actually had happened, like the actual wounds that happened, because I don't want to spend too much time on the gory details. So yeah, but FYI, trigger warning. So the sweater that had been found covering her body actually had a name on it, Velda Woodcock. So the detectives, being the smart people they went around looking for woodcocks that were in the area. And after a couple calls, they finally found Velda. She was alive and well, but she was really worried about her older sister, who hadn't shown up after her shift at a local drive-in. And so she was really worried. She was, telling them, was she in an accident? Was she, what had happened to her? So, so the detectives didn't want to tell them this information or tell her this information over the phone. So they went to her house, gathered information about who her sister was. Her sister's name was Donna. Sorry, I have to look over at Slobs because it's off to the side. It's a whole big thing. I'm not going to go into the information, but you'll see me turn my head every once in a while so I can make sure that things happen. But this right here is Donna. Donna Woodcock. She was the woman that was found in the ditch. She was 22. She worked as a car hop at the Triple X Barrel Drive-In near Bothell here in Seattle. So they were glad that they found out who their victim was, because then they could go and talk to different people that worked with her. Who did she leave with? Who did she know? Did she have any problems with anybody? And I mean, from everybody who had met her, she was sweet, she was sunny, she was, she was a beautiful person. And so they got to the drive-in, and they were talking to her coworkers, and one person remembered that she had gotten into a car that matched the description of the one. Oh, there goes my picture. Every once in a while it does that, but it will come back on, hopefully. But anyway, while it's coming back on, this actually should come back on. Why is it not coming on? Oh, there it goes. Okay. So anyway, so they had seen her get into a car that matched the description of the one that had just been found with all the blood in it. Oh, thank you, Justice. So they thought, okay, here's a connection. She was seen getting into that car, was their assumption, and another gentleman had seen it as well, and so they started kind of gathering this evidence, putting it out there for people to read in the newspapers, and so one day, not too far after they put it in the newspapers, an officer from the local Naval Air base, or the station, actually called and said, "Hey, I've got a Marine here who says he thinks he may know who was driving the car that the young lady got into, that Donna got into." So they went down to talk to that Marine, and he says he knew the man in high school. He had seen him in that car. He didn't know where he had gotten the car, but as we know, the car had been stolen. But he said he had known the guy since high school, and that everything seemed to match up. And he had seen him at the drive-in, driving up in that car, and he believes he did see Donna at least talking to this person. And so the detectives asked him, "Well, what's his name?" And he said, "Well, his name is John Gasser." And he was seen in the Lincoln, and he didn't know the exact address of Gasser's, but he led them to a house, and the person said, "Oh, I'm sorry, they don't live here anymore." Can't imagine how much of a disappointment that had been, but they did give them John Gasser's father's name, William Gasser. So again, they hit the books, and they found out where William Gasser was living. So, I'm going to take a drink. So, they get to the house, and who shows up and answers the door? It's John. John answers the door. They said, "We're looking for John Gasser." And he said, "Hey, that's me." And he's like totally nonchalant. And he's like, "We're just eating dinner." And he tells him to he tells him to come on in and come into the dining room. And everybody's sitting down to eat. And his father, William, is irate. He's like, "Why are you interrupting us during this dinner time?" And his mother seemed very meek, very just kind of cautious, kind of watching her husband to see, how he was and how he was reacting. So John was, again, acting like no big deal, nothing's going on. And so the detective said, "Hey, we got to talk to John. We're going to take him into the cop car, and we're going to talk to him in the unmarked car, outside." So he went out with them, and almost immediately, he seems a little on edge. And they ask him, "We're here to talk about a car that was stolen." And he kind of like breathes a sigh of relief, almost looks relieved, and he said, yeah, I stole that car. I took it. And the detectives were amazed that he just gave that up. Like, no big deal. Yep, I took it. And so they asked him, where are the clothes that you wore last night? And he was a little confused by that answer, but he said, oh, it's at the local cleaners. And so he's like at the cleaners, and so they told the husband, or told the father and the mother, were taking him downtown. And the mother actually says, let's see, I had written it down here. See, that she had wondered, I don't know, that she had wondered, how this was going to look on her family, that her son was being taken down to the police station, that she had wondered what this was going to look like on her husband. And it just kind of makes me, it kind of gives you a view of what the family dynamic had been like. The father, very authoritarian, very much it's all about him and everything that he needs. And the mother probably had been just beaten down so much that she had that like thought of her husband, got to keep my husband happy, because if my husband gets mad, then we all suffer for it. So yeah, really sad to think of somebody growing up in that kind of situation. It doesn't mean murder is okay or it's excusable at that point, but it does give you kind of a background as to what John was going through when he was growing up. So they get to the cleaners, they find the slacks only, but the slacks are covered in blood. So covered in dried blood. And so they're like, we got the guy. So John tells them when they start talking to him, yes, I was in the Navy. It was a dishonorable discharge because I clocked an officer. And so that kind of gave them an idea about who they were dealing with, about the violence. And so anyway, so as they were getting his confession, because then he kind of at first was like, no, I didn't do it. But then he was like, all right. And he started just giving them all the details. Told them all about the attack in the car. He never did admit to the cutting. He says that he went kind of blacked out. So he never admitted to that. But he did say that one of the things that I thought was interesting is that he said that there was no kick out of raping her. Like he didn't get excited off of that, but it was all about overpowering her and being that kind of big guy, to be able to overpower this small young woman. I mean, yeah, and so I thought that was really a tell into his thinking as well, which I've always suspected that rape was more about overpowering someone rather than a sexual aspect of it. I think that it's more about power. But yeah, I mean, for him to actually admit that, scum. But so he was charged with first-degree murder. And he actually went back to the scene with the prosecutor and the detectives to walk him through the whole thing about what happened. He was pretty free, they said, about kind of giving up what happened, which I find is totally bizarre, but it gives you, pause to think that he didn't care. He had no remorse over what he did. And he actually said to the detectives as they were questioning him at the scene, he was like, wow, you guys really know how to make a guy feel bad. Really? I mean, really? I couldn't believe when I read that. I was like, he actually said that to them? Yeah, it is. It is. Yes, very much so, Amanda. So So anyway, so he had a jury of 8 men and 4 women, and at that time, Washington State still had the death penalty. So that was actually definitely on the table. I mean, this was a brutal attack, and I'm so glad, Sarah. So it was a brutal attack. They presented it all to the jury. Jury had no problem convicting him, but 2 of the women had a problem with the death penalty. And so they gave him life in prison. And in 1948, life in prison without parole was life in prison without parole. There was no, getting around that, unfortunately, which, at that point gave the people of Seattle and around, kind of a pause to say, oh, whew, he's put away, it's done. So we don't have to think about him. We don't have to worry about him being on the streets. Unfortunately, in 1951, they changed the laws, and they said, okay, life in prison has to have a 20-year minimum before you can parole them, or you can actually parole them with good behavior, which they're going to live to regret that, even though at the time they were saying it's very rare that they reoffend, and and all that good stuff. So in 1951, and they can also reduce it by a third with time off for good behavior. Now, John was really good at playing people. He was really good about manipulating them and kind of making himself look better than he actually was. He took a 2-year course in accounting, and he actually ended up handling prisoners and guards' money through the store and through all of that. So he actually ended up being charming and cooperative and just good and model prisoner, and they just were like, oh, how could this guy do anything? It might have been a horrible mistake, maybe he won't do it again. So what did they do? They parole him. On August 7th, 1962, he was 33 years old, and they let him out. So, which means if he was about 21 when he was imprisoned, then he only spent about 12 to 13 years in prison. It just, for that brutal murder, only 13 years in prison just seems absolutely horrible, and a miscarriage of justice beyond. I can't even imagine being the family knowing that he was back out on the streets. He was reported almost immediately. He was reported to trying to lure women into his car. So the detectives were hearing this about him, but they really couldn't do anything about it. He was on parole. He was going to see his parole officer and doing all that. So they really couldn't do anything about it. But he ended up getting arrested again because of public intoxication. He had a real problem with alcohol, and an incident with a woman. I think he assaulted a woman, or something happened at that, and so his parole was revoked right away. He was sent back to prison, and he spent, I think, another 5 years in prison. I think it's what it said, and he ended up being paroled again in September of 1969. So, again, we see that this guy who has a history of assaulting women and just disrespecting them, and his anger problem, and alcoholism and all this, they let him out twice now. And so yeah, I mean, can you believe that? He has this history. Doesn't it tell them that maybe we need to keep him behind bars? Maybe we need to keep him away from society? But no, he ended up charming his way out again, and he moved to Bellingham, Washington, which is north up here. It's about 10-15 minutes from the Canadian border. He ended up going there and going to Western Washington University to get his accounting degree. So he did that in 1971. Well, while he was in Bellingham, there's an unsolved murder that comes up, and it's very similar to the one that he had committed. Oh, yeah, it's actually a beautiful place. I mean, John Gasser aside, it's a beautiful area to be. So this is a very similar case to Donna. She was a waitress. She was 22. She had toddlers, little babies, and she had 2 toddlers. Her husband, she had been working at the bar. It was actually her very first day, first full day at the bar, and she had called her husband and needed a ride home after her shift, but he was unable to go get her. So without a car, she was asking people around, hey, can you give me a ride? And apparently came across John R. Gasser, but at this time they didn't know that. They found her downstream from a bridge up in Bellingham by the river. She was found by a couple of hikers, again naked and strangled with her stockings. But they had no clue as to who did this. I mean, nobody could tell who she had went off with, who she got a ride with. She was very faithful to her husband, so they knew that wasn't the case, that she didn't just run off, and so she must have met with foul play from the person she got a ride with. So in 1970, at the same time, Jack gets married to a woman named Trudy. She already has 4 kids. She's been divorced. He told her, and this is something else that I can't understand, and girls, you know what I'm talking about when I say this, but how do you have your future husband tell you that he killed a girl, no matter how he phrases it, tell you that he killed a girl when he was younger and that he went to prison, and yet you still marry him? I don't get that. I don't. If some guy tells me, hey, I killed a girl back, but it's not that big of a deal. This is what happened, no matter how he made it sound, I would have been like, oh, nope, see ya. No, yeah, no. And I can't imagine that. But of course, he was very charming. And so she said that he formed it in a way that made it sound like it wasn't as bad as it really was. I don't know how that way would have been, but like Amanda, exactly, deal breaker. Moment the words come out of your mouth that says, I killed a girl, I'd be like, okay, see ya. You are not for me. So they moved to Olympia. They ended up having 2 sons of their own. But Trudy then tells how she ended up being afraid of him because when he got drunk, he got very violent. And maybe he didn't show that side of him when they were dating. That's usually the case of how it is that the violent person will be very charming and very convincing while they're dating, and then as soon as they get married, they change. And so she said that he was very abusive and very violent, and she was very scared of him. So in 1981, on January 31st, they got separated, and she took out a restraining order. Yeah, I know. So you're recognizing all of these places, Amanda. So they separated in 1981, and she got a restraining order against him. And as good as I think restraining orders are, ladies, they're not going to stop an attack. They just aren't. They're a piece of paper, but it is a good way to get it on record that you're afraid of this person, so that if anything does happen, they have a trail to follow. But so anyway, and that's exactly what happened. He ended up getting drunk on July 4th and going back to her house and just brutally attacking her. And so she ended up getting a second restraining order that actually requested that that he doesn't drink alcohol, which I don't even know how you can have a restraining order for that. How could you keep that from happening? I'm not sure. But it was 1981, and so who knows? Many years before you, yes. July 6th of 1982, the divorce is final. And so she ended up getting custody of the kids, and he only got visitation with them, and she actually controlled when he could or couldn't see his children. So that ended up really upsetting him, it was said. And so it's 34 years, almost to the day, July 6, 1982, almost to the day of Donna, I'm sorry, somebody knocked on my door. Donna Woodcock's murder. 12 years since the other woman in 1970, and it was said actually that he was a ladies' man, and so I don't know how that is. Again, he must have been very charming. He must have been very just kind of personable, because these women found him attractive, even though he had gained some weight. He was about 54 at this time, and but they said that he always had ladies around. He always made the ladies feel like ladies, one woman said. Ugh. So on July 17th, 1982, two boys found a body of a woman. They thought that it was a mannequin in a ditch, but once they got closer, no, it wasn't. That's called a psychopath. Yes, it is. Yes, somebody who conform into society just so easily, but they have these nasty and horrible thoughts and actions. Talking about psychopaths is interesting because there's a range of them. I mean, there's the murderous ones, but you also have, I've heard that people who are politicians or CEOs or in powerful positions often have psychopath personalities, because they are able to charm people, to kind of get themselves formed into what you expect from a certain, viewpoint. And so I thought that was really interesting. Oh, you dated a psychopath. Oh. So this woman that was found, her name was Geraldine Barker, and she was 49. She had she was beaten up. She had a broken nose, broken jaw, broken rib. And she lived alone. It was really sad. It kept saying in what I was reading, and again, for those that weren't here when I stated it, I got a lot of this information from an Anne Rule book called, I have it right here in my pages and pages of notes. One Way, or, oh, no, that's not it. Last Dance, Last Chance, Other True Cases. And Other True Cases. And so I found a lot of this information through that, because there's not a lot about this person on the internet. So I was glad to come across Anne Rule's book on it. She lived alone. She was very concerned about her health, because I guess she had a lot of health issues. She had 2 sons and 1 daughter that didn't live with her. They were all grown up. And they found that she had been raped and strangled. So it seems like strangling was John's MO. So the detectives went in looking to see what had happened. Oh, thank you, Sarah. So they went in to look to see what had happened and found out that she had been at a bar, which, I mean, for someone who is concerned about her health and well-being, going to a bar and getting schnockered, which she did, because they ended up having to cut her off, seems kind of counterintuitive, maybe a little bit. But anyway, they ended up finding out that she, yes, he is, that she left with Gasser. So because he was also a regular. This was a VFW bar. So both him and Jerry, which is what people called her, were regulars here. So they saw her leave with him. And they did see him and Jerry hanging out around his apartment. I guess they had also known before, like his neighbors or her neighbors before had known that they knew each other, because at one point he was banging on her door, and even though she was home, she wasn't answering the door. So they must have made up because they ended up going out again, or hanging out again. And on anyway, the cops had talked to him because people had seen him with them. He was actually up in Everett, which about 90 miles north of Olympia, and so they said, hey, we found this. We knew you were with her last. He said, I didn't do it, but when they said we got a warrant for your car and your clothes, he's like, whatever, fine. So, but the next day, which was July 21st, he turned himself in. But again, he was pretty cocky because he was surprised when they were like, hey, we're going to arrest you for this. Because what did they find in his apartment? In the doorway, the stairwell, his car, they found blood all over the place. All over the place. And so, and it matched Jerry's blood type. Because again, this is 1982. DNA wasn't really a thing. So they were going off of blood type at the time. So, July 22nd, he is charged with first-degree murder again. And he got convicted on December 28th, 1982. And so with the laws and everything, his first date of parole wouldn't be until July 7th of 2012. And I mean, why they would even say, oh, hey, you might get parole. I would never let this guy out ever again. But he'd be 84 at the time, at that time. In 1996, he was moved to a convict nursing home, which he was apparently very upset about. He did not want to be there. But they sent him there anyway. They were like, I don't care where you want to be. This is where we're going to put you. And that's all I could find on him. At the point of the book, and I didn't check, I wasn't able to check to see when the book was published. But at the time of the book, he apparently was still alive. But I'm assuming by now he's dead. I mean, he'd be almost, 100 now? Almost. So, and I'm pretty sure that he probably has died, and hopefully he died a slow death. I hope it was painful, because this guy is a jerk. Anyway, that's, I'm like sitting here leaning in, looking at the camera, because I'm so into the story. But anyway, that is the story. And yes, putting it nicely. And so just to let you guys know, I know I wrote this down. I know I wrote it down, but I can't remember, or I can't tell where I wrote it down. Anyway, during his time of being questioned about Jerry's death, he actually also had confessed to murdering the woman up in Bellingham. So yeah, I do. I hope he suffered, because there are at least 3 women. They are thinking that there probably were more, because he had 25 years, a 25-year span in Washington to be able to, do all of this, So the fact that there's only 3 that they know about, they suspect that there's more, but we'll never know. But anyway, thank you, Justice. But anyway, I want to thank everybody who stuck around after the raid, who came in with the raid. That is so exciting. I'm still just on cloud 9 about that. It's so exciting. I am so glad that you guys kept thinking about this, and the Moors murders, I've heard about those. So yeah, so a little bit about this stream, just to let people know that I haven't been in here. This stream is actually going to become I am too. This is going to become a viewer participation stream as well, because I know that there are so many people out there who are obsessed with true crime, and it's like everything that you watch, they just sit there and they present the facts, they present the story, and that's it, just like I did tonight. What I want is for people to be able to call in using Discord and talk about their favorite true crime stories, and talk about maybe they might have connections. If you look at the previous stream that I did on Monday, I talked about a murder that I personally had a connection to. She was a girl I went to high school church group with. So go ahead and go watch that stream if you want to hear about that story. But what I'm hoping to do is actually, bring a community together here on Twitch who are obsessed with true crime like I am, but also will want to share stories and things that they have found about something that they may have been obsessed with, forever. So, Sarah, I'm so glad you're here too. I really am. I'm so glad that you're here. And so that's the future of it. I definitely want this to become, a good, strong community, that has, the thing in common of, talking about true crime, I also want to talk about and remember victims more than I want to remember the perpetrators. I believe that their story needs to be told. They need to be remembered, not only as the victims of a crime, but as people who had families, who had loved ones that, missed them terribly, and where they were taken way too soon. Ah, there goes my picture again. Should come back on. So, cats want to do that, Sarah. They're night creatures. They're nocturnal. So yeah, your cat probably does want to play right now. 3 a.m. Yep, right on the money. So anyway, I am so glad that you guys came in. I am so excited. I almost hit my 50 people goal, with the follows. So I'm really excited. To have you here. I'm still, Phil is such a great guy. I just really enjoy his streams and enjoy him as a person. He's got a really good heart. But, yeah, so I'm almost there. So if you know anybody who is obsessed with true crime or who likes stories like these, have them, come into the stream and give me a follow. We really are a Twitch family, Sarah, or a cult, a cult too, maybe, called the Followers with a PH. Yep, 4 more followers needed until I hit the 50 mark. So I'm really super excited with that. But yeah, I love the people that I have met here. Such a great community. But if you know of anybody who would enjoy the stream, please have them come in. If you want to support the stream, because I'm not an affiliate yet, so if you want to support it, in the info section down below on Twitch, there is a way to tip me. I am saving up to get a new computer because I need one in order to do this kind of stuff, and I'm totally enjoying it. I love researching this kind of stuff and looking into it. I do have other things in line or, on the plan for future. So I'm so excited with that. And so with that being said, Friday is the next time I'm going to stream. It's going to be at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, just like it was tonight. And I think what I'm going to do is do some reaction videos to Live PD from YouTube. I think that, yes, 2 a.m. your time, Sarah, but I'm going to pick some of my favorite ones out and we're going to watch them. Oh, Phil, you're still here? Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were still here. But we're going to watch them. We're going to laugh at the stupid criminals. We're going to marvel at how they think they're going to get away with things. And we're just going to have fun. It's just going to be a fun Friday type thing. So I hope to see you there on Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so I hope I will be able to see you guys here. I'm so excited. Phil, thank you so much again for the raid. It means the world to me. And I can't wait to see you guys again on Friday. Have a good night. Good night. Yay, Justice, I'm so glad. Yes, good night. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Mwah, 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 mwah. Oh, good night, Amanda. Everybody have a good night. Sleep well. We'll see you tomorrow in Phil's stream.